Hey guys, welcome to another For the Painter Good painting tutorial, and today we're going to look at potentially what could be the best way to paint Space Marine power armor, and what better models to test this on than of course the amazing Space Wolf Blood Claws that came out with the launch box here. So I figured this is a kind of different way of trying to paint them, so I've primed the models in Rhinox hide effectively. Now you can do this with a brush if you want. Colourforge also offer a brilliant colour match to Rhinox hide. It's called Hyrax brown. And the way we're going to try and paint these guys is by using beauty blenders or makeup sponges here. The whole idea behind this is that it'll give us a really subtle gradient without having to use blending and that kind of thing, and it'll also allow us then to create more of an illusion of shadows. So as you just seen from the paint pots there, I've obviously primed it in Rhinox hide, but I'm now going to go in with a 50-50 mix of Rhinox hide and the Fang. And basically what this is going to do is this is going to give us our blend now from the brown colour, which is going to get left in the recesses because obviously the beauty blender is too big to go into those recesses, and it's going to then leave the brown in the recess, creating the illusion of shading on there, and then the actual mix of the Fang is going to give us our subtle tint then, which will be the base armor color then overall. You can see here I'm working my way through the whole squad of 5 basically. I want to show you doing this in a squad of 5, right? Because there's no point in doing this if it can't translate across a whole squad here. The whole point of this is to try and save us a bit of time here. So that's what I want us to do. I want us to save a bit of time here in doing this. So here we are, just working our way up through all the models. You can see I'm not being careful at all with any of this. I'm literally just working my way up through it here, and I've done a pretty messy job overall and that kind of stuff. We are going to go in for a second coat now, so you can see I've swapped to the smaller beauty blender. So don't be afraid if you can't reach into those smaller recesses and that kind of thing, guys. You can leave the brown in there to create more shadows if you want them to be more exaggerated, but I'm grabbing a second beauty blender here, a much smaller one, and I'm going to go in. You can also rip a bit off the end if you want. I'm going to do that later on in this video. You can rip a bit off the end of the beauty blender and stick it actually into the into like one of the caps that you would protect your paintbrush bristles with, and you can do it that way as well. So you can see I'm working my way through the kind of layers here. I would do 2 coats of this one in particular, right, just because we want that really smooth coat over the top of the Rhinox hide in that case. So you can see it again, just don't be careful about it, just get it on every bit of power armor you can and that kind of thing. We really want this to be a good smooth coat in that case as well, because this is obviously our foundation for all of our actual like armor segments here, and we're going to work our way up through there in that case as well. So you can see, as I said, just make sure you're pressing that makeup sponge onto the power armor and just continuously working away at it then in that case as well. So this is me going back in now, and what I've done is now I've cut out the Rhinox hide altogether, and now I've switched it up to the just pure the Fang in that case. This is going to give us our more blue tint now. You can be a little bit more specific with this one now. Try and, if you can, leave a kind of small line going down the side of the leg panels, because that'll create that kind of shadowy gradient that we're looking for. And then again, just put this on. You don't have to be particularly careful with it. The makeup sponge won't go into the recesses anyway, but try and do it in a slightly smaller area than what we did with the original mix of the 50-50 Rhinox hide and the Fang here. You can see this is that was the Fang versus that was the 50-50 mix there in that case. So you can see there is a little bit of a difference here. We're starting to turn more into that power armor color here in this case. This is a good example of it here and that kind of thing. You can see I'm being much more specific where I'm targeting. I'm kind of more going straight down the leg rather than trying to do that kind of like all over kind of thing. I'm trying to stay more within like a smaller area than actually what we're doing with the actual overall mix then in that case. So you can see we're just layering it up here in that case. And the best thing I find to do is to actually do knees up to the bottom of the feet, and then tops of the backpacks, the faces, the chests, top of the arms. These are the easiest bits that I find, and just try and think about where like the points of light would occur on the model in that kind of case as well. And I've not done anything particular here to thin this paint. This is just the paint onto a palette and just pick it up with a beauty blender and just get straight in there basically and that kind of stuff. Again, I'm giving it a second pass here just to make sure that it's going well and that kind of thing, just so we're getting a good firm coat and that kind of thing as well on it then in that case. But again, you can see I've been a little bit more targeted with this one as well. Again, just using the foot as my guiding example here. I thought these were a great model to show this on as well, because actually their movements are so exaggerated and dynamic as well. Their poses are so unique and that kind of thing that actually you can pick out points of light on these without having to do a whole lot of work. You just look at whatever like appendage is extended outwards and that kind of thing. Make sure you're hitting the top of that, like I'm doing with the arm here in that case, tops of the head, whatever chest part is exposed, the top of whatever leg is exposed. You can see I'm even hitting kind of down towards the ankle on this particular one as well here in that case. So it's going well, I think, at the moment, that kind of thing. This is actually my first time using this, guys, as well, actually. So I'm kind of learning it with you guys here, and you'll see actually this guy here that I start with first, by the end of the video, I think he looks the roughest of them all, to be honest with you. But actually, I'm pretty pleased with the overall result still. So this is us at the Fang so far then. So that's pure the Fang. Now, this is a part that if I was to go back, I would probably change it a little bit. So from the Fang, I jumped straight up to Russ Grey in that case. Now, if I was to go back and redo this tutorial, I would probably move to a 50-50 mix of the Fang and Russ Grey then in that case. And the idea behind it is just then that actually that mix would provide a kind of softer blend between the kind of pure Fang and the Russ Grey effectively here in that case, because you can see when I'm applying it on here, it's a bit of a sharp change in that case. It looks like a little bit of a sharp one, so I would maybe go back and try and blend that in a little bit more softly there in that case. But again, like we did with the Fang, we want to go in an even smaller part here in that case. So again, you can see I've got my smallest blender here, and I'm just trying to stay even further within now the Fang then in that case. So I want to be even closer then in that case. But you can see how stark the difference there is in that. It's really creating that illusion of light now that we've blended up about 2 or 3 different colors together now in that kind of thing. And you can see here on the backpack, it really looks like the light is hitting the top of the backpack there, and the face, and particularly this guy. I really like this guy actually, the way I did the poses if you dive into the side a bit. But you can see there, it's creating that kind of illusion of light on the top of the backpack. You see I've not even hit like the whole circle there on the backpack. I've tried to stay actually towards the more raised part at the top then in that case as well. Obviously we're trying to hit a bit more of the chest here because he's leaning backwards into the light as well and that kind of thing. And then again, like this, top of the backpack again, you can see from these clips I have reference points that I just keep gravitating to every time. And it's kind of a bit of an organic process as well. You'll find out on your model where you reckon the light would hit and you target that area. That's what I would recommend that you do. You'll have a better judgment than I ever would. So you'll see me, I always use tops of the knees, tops of the arms, tops of the head, and tops of the backpack. Those are my go-to areas. And you can see here that I've done that Russ Grey now on this guy, and you can see it's done a really, really nice job here. And this is where I'm going to rip off the small part of the Beauty Blender here in that case. And you can see I've just stuffed it into the top of that paint brush protector. And I'm just dabbing really gently now with our 50-50 mix now of Fenrisian Grey and Russ Grey. So this is our brightest mix. And this is what we really want to accent that color. We really want that to show as a really bright point of light on the model then basically in that case. The result is actually that it nearly gives a little bit of a non-metallic metal effect. Slightly, it's just probably more of a better showing of light than on a traditional heavy metal scheme basically in that case. But as you can see here, I'm blasting my way through a full squad of 5 here on the armor. You know, traditionally I would do like a coat of contrast and then a shade and then a layering job and that kind of thing. But you can see here I've actually not had to apply any shades on this model. He looks like I've actually done a bit of shading on him already, but he actually has no shades on him whatsoever basically. This is purely with the makeup sponges here. And I haven't actually snipped a lot of the footage out of this, guys, if I'm going to be honest with you. I've snipped out all the bits where I changed my hand position and things like that, but I actually haven't snipped out a lot of the stippling on of the paint actually, because I want you guys to see if this actually is the quickest way to paint up really an army of Space Marines, or is it the best way to paint up power armor. I do think there are drawbacks to it as well. It's not really good, I thought, for the shoulder pads unless you're doing the shoulder pads separately. You'll see at the end of the video I actually did try and do the yellow in the shoulder pad with this little tiny bit of makeup sponge here. I tried to do it and tried to get that point of light really good on the shoulder pads. it was a complete disaster, and I just went back and did it with a brush in the end. But because I had attempted to do it with the stippling, I actually left a lot of the brown on the outside of it, so it still looks like I've kind of recess shaded it overall, or it still blends in with the model a little bit as well. So for the purposes of this tutorial as well, guys, I'm going to just show you how to do the power armor in this case, rather than actually showing you how to paint a full Space Wolf. I'll leave a full list of paints in the description that I used to finish off all of these guys, and I'll also throw a link in the tutorial to my other Space Wolves tutorial as well. There's just a few steps that you've got to skip out on it. Basically anything that applies like contrast onto it or anything like that. I switched Skeleton Horde for Ushabti Bone, just in case you're doing any of the bone parts and that kind of thing as well. You can leave a little bit of the brown just at the tips of the recesses here. The traditional things like Black Legion for the black, Leadbelcher for the gunmetal casing, Retributor armor for the gold, and then I'll leave a list of all the shades obviously I applied and what I applied them onto as well then, guys. Mephiston Red, of course, and Evil Sun Scarlet for the gems, and a bit of white and some Blood Angel Red for the eyes and that kind of thing as well. Averland Sunset went on the shoulder pads as well. So you can see here, again, I'm being really, really specific now with this 50-50 mix. It's really, really, really targeted in that case. Again, tops of the arms, you can see in the shoulder, on the top of the knee there, sorry, there's a lovely blend there on the top of that knee. And you can see, like, in the end of the video, guys, when I put up all the models and that kind of thing, my confidence definitely grew as I did more of them. So actually, this is one of these rare scenarios where I would say, if you're doing them, do more than one of them at first, because yes, if you botch it, then you might need to go back and do it right all over again. But your confidence will grow the more you practice with it effectively there. So I definitely found that my confidence grew. So my first one is probably the roughest looking one, but then you get guys like this that actually have that really lovely blend right down the middle of the leg there in that case as well. You can see it on that plate just above his rear as well and that kind of thing. This guy diving to the side looks absolutely fantastic as well here. And just actually, guys, just to show you kind of what it would look like in comparison to a traditional kind of way of painting here in this case, I'm also going to throw up the original Space Wolf Blood Claws that I painted using my previous YouTube tutorial. I'm going to put the other like identical sculpts of them side by side. Now obviously the arm poses and the leg poses are slightly different, and some of them have bolt pistols and some of them have knives, but it's just so that you guys can actually see what they look like side by side. They actually don't look too different that I would be unhappy running them in the same army and that kind of thing. I actually just think these ones look like the shadows are much harsher. They look like this. So here's the first pair there. So that's the sergeant obviously, and the first guy that I did, as I said, he looks rough. This is the second guy here, that lovely blend up the middle of the leg as well, really good. Here's the next ones, again, really good. I think they're really strong, to be honest with you. Again, the shadows just look much harsher. He looks like a much more battle-worn Space Marine as well, around the shoulder pads and that kind of thing. Again, the next pose here, really cool. I really like that diving to the side pose I built as well there. That was really cool. But overall, guys, let me know what you actually think. Is this the best way to do Space Marine power armor? It was definitely faster than normal anyway. As always, I'd like to thank you very much for your time. Please, if you have a chance, throw a like and subscribe down below. It means the world to me. If you've got any cool ideas on what I should do next, or if you have any thoughts on this scheme, please leave a comment below. And as always, I wish you a lovely rest of your day. Thank you very much. Goodbye.